Hi, hey everybody. This is my longtime friend Mark Gross. We go in the Wayback Machine. I think we
Yes.
met each other with the Lionel Hampton Orchestra when I got in 1990 when Bill Titone called me for a gig. I believe Nina Simone was on my very first gig, believe it or not.
Wow. I remember those days. Yeah. And to the audience again, knowing Marshall for so many years, we were kind of talking before we started airing this recording, and one of the things we talked about in terms of working with Lionel, um, well, at that time, which was great, Lionel bands at that time were working constantly. Like we had an opportunity to be on the road a lot. Like that band, in terms of a working band, that was truly one of those things in the sense of a working band. Every one of those musicians was the same personnel that went out each time we went out, and we toured quite a bit. And as he mentioned, we worked with we got a chance to work and meet some of the most iconic people, of course, playing with Lionel Hampton every night, but some tours we would do, it would be Dizzy Gillespie be on the bill or Joe Williams be on the bill. Um, what was the other? Terry Gibbs he would do duo vibraphone concerts. So we got a chance to play with a lot of different people and get to know each other. And I also had mentioned, because we were talking about clarinet. Marshall came in the band as a baritone saxophonist, and I was just joking with him. One of the concerts, typically in a big band, the baritone player will double on bass clarinet and clarinet. Um, so there was a feature in the band, and Marshall was taking the solo. In fact, you know what? I remember one time, Marshall, we were doing a gig, and Lionel turned around to the band and asked anybody, did they know Avalon? And I didn't know it, and I don't think many other cats knew it. And you said, "I know it," and you grabbed your clarinet and you started playing with do 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 dee 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 da boo dee do dee. And then when you started soloing, even then, I was joking before, I kind of just took my clarinet and just kind of slid it behind my back because I was like, this dude down there is dealing with that clarinet. I remember that though, man. And then actually, that was one of the times I thought to myself, you know what? I need to go learn these tunes. These old, I shouldn't say old. These classic standard tunes. Like in my repertoire of tunes at that time, I wasn't hip to Avalon. I didn't realize how hip of a tune that was, or even what some of the cats, the quote unquote iconic cats who played Avalon. So yeah, that was my introduction to Marshall McDonald. Good
Man,
intro, and been friends ever since.
I appreciate that, man. As most people know now, I started out on classical clarinet, and I was telling Mark how James Stewart will send me a text about every other month to say, "Man, you practicing the clarinet, man? You know you're a clarinet player." But strangely enough, my brother, who's a tremendous musician, he's retired now. For years, he's been telling me, man, that sometimes the instrument is really our instrument. We keep running from,
That's
and
right. Yeah.
he said, I hate to tell you, brother, but the clarinet is your horn. So, you know,
Yeah.
and
You
and
might
one
as
of
well go on and deal with it.
at one of these points, you need to sit down and deal with it. You keep because the clarinet will let you know. The clarinet I can put down the
Amen.
sax for 3 weeks and pick it up. You feel the clarinet's
Right.
like, no, no,
No,
sorry.
no, no. That's right. No, 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 no. You didn't want to play me last week. I don't feel like playing this week. How about that? Yeah,
I,
I know what you mean.
I made a joke to
Yeah,
James Stewart. I said, at night the clarinet get out the case and be laughing at me.
man. That'd be a fun, like, kind of cartoon skit, I know my clarinet will be laughing. It's probably laughing at me right now. Like, is he really? He gonna put me on display like this? Really? Like he really be playing and practicing on me?
When I came into the Ellington band on baritone, I'll be honest with you, I didn't really know the Ellington music like I should. You know what I'm saying? I
Uh
hadn't really
huh.
spent the time with it, like listening to Count Basie. And
Yeah.
but still, Mercer asked me to come back. I guess he said, I see some potential in this clown. I'll see if he can.
Well, Mercer was an interesting dude. When I first joined the band, I remember we were in the airport and we had a layover at some airport. And I'm maybe 2, 3 months into the band. And even to this day, I love coffee. So Mercer and Barry Lee Hall were sitting at the terminal gate. I'm sorry, hold on a second. Hmm. I was trying to hold that sneeze, but it was like, nah, I got to come out. Mercer and Barry Lee Hall were sitting at the gate. So I walked by them to go find like a Starbucks or, a coffee place in the airport. And Barry told me this later. He said Mercer looked at him and said, "Yeah, as soon as we get back to New York, I'm going to fire his ass." And Barry was like, "No, Mercer, no." Now, mind you, I did nothing to Mercer, nothing at all. He said, Mercer said that the way I was walking, he didn't like it. He said he was going, as soon as he get back to New York, he going to fire me. And Barry's like, "No, Mercer, he's a good cat. He's one of the cats. We need to keep him." So that was so funny. And of course, that turned into seemingly a lifetime chair. Sort of, how long of a tenure you've had with Basie. I've had with Ellington.
I remember.
Long time. Yeah.
That was around 95 when I think I went to Bermuda with you all.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I made some poor choices. There was too much work. I wanted to go back out with Lionel Hampton, and Mercer asked me to do something on baritone again, because Tony Barrero wanted to get me into the band. Because I guess you know it, I got Tony on Lionel's band, right? And he was always like, "Marshall, I want to thank you all the time for getting me in that band. Thank you. I will do something for you. I will not kill you."
Yeah, right. Tony Brook.
I miss Tony, man. I never had no trouble.
No, me either. In fact, sometimes because he lived in Jersey, he would sometimes give me rides back home, and we talk. And he was the sweetest cat, man. But he just had that kind of seemingly rough persona about him.
Right.
But he was a teddy bear, sweet cat, man.
He really was, man. See, I told him, I said, I grew up with my father, went to World War II. You don't scare me, man.
You did.
You ain't seen nothing.
I was gonna say you got to come pretty strong to come behind that.
you know what I'm saying? And he kind of laughed. So then he met my brother. See, my brother was similar to him. Big man, was in the Air Force, carried a gun too and stuff. So
right.
He was a trumpet player in the Air Force too. So they hit it off. After that, he's like, "I like you. I love your brother, man. I like your brother. I'm not so sure about you, but I like your brother."
Yeah, right.
No, but he was a sweetheart, because he thanked me maybe 100 times. He loved Lionel Hampton.
Yeah, he did. He really did. Yeah, he had a good time in that band too. Yeah. I remember he and Wally during that time, Wally Gator, they would just go up there and hang like on a regular. So Tony got real tight with Lionel.
Yeah.
Gates.
We lost a lot of cats, man. So what I had asked you, I was asked the first question. I used to talk to Grant Langford about Mark Gross and Brad Lee. They always get this foo, this articulation, this sound that I still can't seem to get.
As I was telling Marshall, I had listened. My early experience, my early days of listening to Cannon was a lot of his popular tunes. Of course, his hit song, "Mercy, Mercy, Mercy." But it was, and this is during my college years, like in the '80s, the mid '80s. A good friend of mine, Javon Jackson, had turned me on to a record in particular called the Japanese Concerts, where Cannonball was playing this song called "Easy to Love," and I just demonstrated a little bit of that to Marshall a minute ago. But then that led me to just really dissecting Cannon to the point where I wanted to break down every barrier of how he put his air into the horn. And that meant, from watching videos that I could find, very few at that time in the 80s, YouTube, I don't even know if YouTube was around, the internet was around for that matter, I can't remember, but a lot of listening to vinyl. And what I found is I would gravitate to ballads because I could hear the weight of his breath, the weight of his air. I could hear his vibrato, how fast it was or how slow it was, when he would put vibrato on a particular note, how he would bend notes, and things like that kind of led me to trying to do that. Like one of his popular ballads is "Stars Fell in Alabama." on and on and on and on. And so,
What about the
but I,
easy? What about the easy to love solo you talked about?
right, so it's the same thing in Easy to Love, but of course at a faster tempo. Like Cannon to me, not only did he embody like the sound that I was really wanting to kind of grab, but his articulation, when you talked about it earlier, like how he could play fast, but there was still, you could still feel the expression in how he would play fast lines. And again, when Javon Jackson played me that record, that really let me down a rabbit's hole of just like wanting to grab and hear any and everything that Cannon could play. So this is the intro, and his hip too, because on that record, if you check it out, it's just Cannon and the drummer, whose name I'm forgetting at the moment, just playing this intro into the melody of the song. So I'll try to play it a little faster to kind of give you an idea. So tempo, if you can imagine, is kind of up in here. Uh, 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 I'm forgetting the solo, but
No, it's all right.
again, so I think it was a kind of a combination of hearing him on both sides of that fence, hearing how he could play a ballad and just kind of just melt the keys off the saxophone, or play something up tempo and burn the keys off the saxophone, but it just all felt so easy to him. Yeah, so Cannon played with like the way that his air was going through the horn. Again, the way I describe it is like he played with such a way that it felt like the air was just spinning through that horn, like from the mouthpiece through the neck to the bottom of that horn, out to the bell and out of the sides of the keys, but in a very controlled way. So even when he would play at a soft and playing in a way where it wasn't like this loud bombastic sound, like, and I tell my students now, there's a difference between having a big sound and having a loud sound. Like to me, Cannon had a big sound, meaning that he was able to make that horn vibrate in such a way where it was not only pleasing to the ear, but it just had this full focus. The sound was very focused. Just to kind of demonstrate, like to me, this is loud. That's loud. This is a big sound. What was the song you said, Del Sassa? You know how he kind of plays that on the end.
Man, man, you spend a lot of hours with Cannonball. You got that stuff
Man,
memorized in your mind, man.
it's all up here somewhere. It might be scrambled eggs right now. But
No,
again,
I
so to go back on that sound thing again, for me, it's a combination of being able to control the airstream of the sound so that in all registers, the horn speaks and speaks in a natural way where it's like, again, Cannon and many others. I feel, Johnny Hodges did it in his way. Marshall Royal did it in his own unique way. Sonny Stitt, Phil Woods. I mean, the list is a long list of great alto players who understood how the sound was a part of the source of really or the understanding of how to get, like you mentioned, breathing from the diaphragm and getting that air spinning through the horn is really the source of getting a great sound.
and I completely agree. I've told a lot of musicians a much different concept of playing loud or having a full sound that projects to the back of the room. And I'm going to mention Charlie Young at this time. I got in a discussion
Woo!
with another band member. I actually said Charlie Young does not play loud because they said he's one of the loudest saxophone players I know. I said no, he's not. I've been in a room with loud saxophone players, and I got to go like this.
Yeah, exactly, man.
No, I said Charlie Young is pushing the sound in all directions with his air.
Woo!
So it's going out to the most amazing part of Charlie Young is he pushes it to the side. And I haven't quite figured out how he does that,
Yeah, that is, yeah,
because I
yeah,
could be sitting beside him and I can hear it this way,
yep,
that way. And
yep.
it's not loud, man. I
Mm-mm,
remember when
mm-mm.
Johnny Williams told me that because Johnny Williams does not play loud. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm,
Johnny
mm-hmm.
Williams' sound goes to the back of the room.
That's
And
right.
I didn't realize how good Johnny Williams was making me sound until he
Yeah.
was gone. And I was in search for that for like the next 7 years.
As a section player, I can totally relate to that because sitting next to a person such as that, and a Charlie Young, you kind of get spoiled, because they're able to enhance the section in a way that you don't realize it until they're not there. And again, not to discredit anyone else, but they have um, a certain kind of philosophy in how they play, a certain kind of I think it's more of a conception of how they play versus like I'm just gonna play the horn, I'm gonna play the music. It's like they bring this whole ideology to the horn and to the music. That's just, yeah. How if we could go in the store and pick a bottle of that off the shelf, and drink it like as a Coca-Cola, man, we'd all be the better for it.
You and I were very, very privileged, unlike as Cleve and I were talking about, our friend Cleve Guyton. We're talking about the young folks today didn't get the experience we got. When we were relying on him, man, I met Eddie Harris. Remember we went to see Eddie Harris? We
That's
met
right.
Art Farmer. I got a list. I got pictures of all these dudes.
That's
Clark Terry,
right.
you just name it, man. And
Yep.
Eddie Harris changed my life when he said, I don't need to play a big tip mouthpiece. I took that to heart. I
Yeah.
took that to heart and just started changing my setup and said, "Oh, I see what he means. You can get the sound to come out. You don't need a big tip mouthpiece."
Yeah, I remember that. What was that? I think I was in Munich where we met Eddie Harris. We were on tour. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. So many iconic cats. Wow.
So I remember talking to the older cats in the Basie band when I first got in there, because I got to sub early in '94. And they talked a lot about pushing. They didn't remember in the old days. They didn't have microphones and all that stuff. Remember, you
Mm,
saw the Basie band had a solo mic. That was it.
that's right. That's right.
And they talked about how you learn how to push the sound to the back wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jackie
Mm-hmm.
Kelso was excellent at that. He was not
Mm-hmm.
loud,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
he directed the sound. He said with his, to where
Mm-hmm.
he wanted it to go.
Mm-hmm. In particular, that band that you had the privilege of sitting Basie, I think that band in particular is one of the few. I want to almost say I can count them on my hand, not even all fingers, a few of my fingers, whose dynamics impressed me so much. So particularly the saxophone stuff that you all played. It's like you could play a passage, with just the quietest dynamic, and everything you wanted to hear was there. You could hear the articulation, you could hear the phrasing, you could hear the inflections, you could hear the, or you could, you could open that thing up and play the forceful thing too. And it was like, man, the dynamics. Oh, I was just, it just always amazed me of that. That was, I think, one of the opportunities. I wish I had more chances to play in the Basie band than I did. I've only subbed a handful of times, but every time I would hear you all, I would just think to myself, "Oh my gosh, wow!" It's just being
It
ridiculous, man.
it was like going to college for me because Frank Foster
Mm,
got me in the band subbing for Kenny Hing's important chair once,
mm,
and
mm-hmm.
I learned so much in those 2 years. I wasn't entirely ready yet. My first solo was good because I wasn't thinking and I didn't play much.
Yeah.
And then I started to try to keep up with Foss and Doug Miller. And it was Cleve Eaton that kind of screwed my head on right, but I didn't get Cleve Eaton is the great bass player. We
Yep.
also he just passed away too. James Leary
Yeah.
passed away also. Cleve Eaton one time came up to me and said, "Well, he talked Cleve was like a country, Oh, come on, home. You playing all them notes and stuff, trying to keep up with Doug Miller and Frank Fox. Don't do that, home. When you play like the way you first came up and here, play pretty, home. Play pretty, home.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't
You know,
understand it completely.
Jimmy Heath was the same way. Like in his band, he would often sometimes have to like pull the reins on the saxophone section. I remember in particular one day we were rehearsing, and for some reason that day I was pushing the section really hard. He used to call me Remarkable. He give everybody a nickname. He said, Remarkable. No, no, no. He said, the saxophones, you're my string section. The trumpets, I want that from the trumpets, not the saxophones. And it reminded me again of like, you know, the role of of the saxophone section in the big band, in that in terms of the color that you know it, I think it's probably a through line for most big bands, and of course stylistically each band has its own style, but really the saxophones really provided that melodic color in that sense, that like he said, that lush sound. And not that other sections couldn't do that, but Jimmy Heath was like, no, no, you're my string section. So again, it was like a illustration of, you know, talking about air and like you say, a guy like Charlie Young and others who, they could play in a way. It wasn't like this loud sound, but it was just this beautiful full sound, and you could just, it just emoted. It's almost like he had a bell in the back of his horn, in the back of his neck or something. It's like the sound was
Right.
just like all around him. Yeah, beautiful, man.
That was amazing, man. I wanted to ask you. I also noticed you and Brad Lely, you do something with your hands. I should.
Ah,
It's
I
like
got, I got to take a picture of that one. See, I got to watch this video and say, let me.
well,
What?
it,
I
it,
look crazy.
but it's like you putting a little emphasis on the note with your wrist and finger action. Am I right or wrong?
You're probably right, but again, I have noticed when I look at sometimes videos of my playing, there have been things that have developed over the years that I consider bad habits. Like sometimes I'll have, I forget which cheek, one of my cheeks will kind of, they get that Dizzy Gillespie. I got like the half Dizzy Gillespie thing going on. Um,
That's not a bad habit. Nathan Davis once told me to try puffing my cheek because he said, "Man, your sound is too legit. Your sound is too straight."
and to be honest, Marshall, going back to Canon, somehow I attribute that to me trying to emulate that sound,
Right.
and I felt like that getting more kind of a cavernous thing up in here, kind of open my sound up, which it I probably could have done it again without doing it because he did it. I look at your armature, certain cats that's got like this perfect bird had it. It's like, I'm like, man, I want to get back to that. And some days I even try to practice with really looking and trying to keep this thing here, but it is what it is. The body language, I think that might be a combination of, again, sometimes I look at videos and I look like I'm almost down on the floor sometimes. Like my head might hit the ground. I'm so far down. I get so into the music. It's like whatever that thing is, it's there. But I am conscious about, even if this puffy thing happens, about keeping my corners tight and making sure my air is focused and it's not, a lot of air seeping on the sides.
Right, right.
My hand finger positions on the horn, I try to keep them um as even and as, I mean, not like glued to the pearls, but kind of fairly distance, a fairly good distance on the horn. My hand position itself, I try not to play flat fingers, and so those things I've always been sort of conscious of. I think the body thing is probably developed over the years. We're trying to, feel it. I'm feeling the music that way.
Well, that's fine with me, man. Look,
Yeah, yeah.
I